Hey, Ethan.
Jerel, my man, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm doing great. What you up to this Sunday afternoon?
I have been, I grilled out for lunch and then
What'd you make?
some steak, actually. Some
Ooh,
steaks. They were
it's a
good.
good lunch.
But I know that you have been grilling
Yes.
something all day today. What have you been doing?
With your help and with Philip Hamrick, with his help as well,
He
I
didn't
have
help.
been smoking a pork butt.
Bill didn't help you that much. It was me.
Yeah, it's true. He didn't. I just looked at a picture of him while I was doing it, and his masculinity gave me the confidence to do it. No, I've been smoking a pork butt. I've never smoked meat before. I'm a
Wow.
huge fan of smoked meat,
I am.
um, and it's ready. I guess it's just waiting
That
for me.
sounds delicious.
I'm very excited.
But that's not what we're here to talk about today, is it? We started a new series.
Actually, it is what we're here to talk about.
Good. I would love to talk about smoked.
This is a podcast on meat. No, it's not.
I would like
Uh,
to have I would like to have one of those.
you kicked off a series today called All the Feels,
Yeah.
and I don't know if anyone listening to this now, if you've watched one of our previous talks. A couple of times ago, I talked about how emotional I can be, and so anytime you talk about emotions, I cry all the time. Anytime you talk about emotions, I kind of perk up a little bit because I am emotional and I'm aware of that. And I think we all deal with emotions, obviously, and yeah, it's a big topic. And so I thought you did a great job today talking about it. Is there anything in There's a lot happening. Obviously, we're kind of on the back end of COVID, but we're on the front end of some protests and some riots. And
Yeah.
so, my first question for you, Gerald, is how does this series, or maybe even today, or this idea of being emotionally healthy, how does it tie into what's current today?
Kind of where we are.
Yeah,
Well, I think for one, the first thing that I think about is that there are a lot of people who are really frayed right now on
yeah,
the edges, or just feeling a lot of stress, or maybe feeling things that they never have felt before, or they're not sure why they're acting how they are because they've got so much going on inside. uh, I mean, we have we're in the middle still of this pandemic, and
yeah,
it's turned 2020 upside down. And then, of course, and this is not something that's just happened. And racism has been around since the beginning of time, since people, since
absolutely.
Adam and Eve, and everything that happens in Genesis. And yet it continues to, it is still an issue in our society. Racism still is prevalent. It is still systemic, and it's something that I think, with all of the things that have happened in the past couple of weeks, and the protesting going on, and the death of George Floyd, and all these other folks, and the issues in terms of police brutality, and there's so much going on, and so with the emotional side of that, there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of struggle with that. And one thing that, I mean, I'll just on a bit of a, just a line here for a minute. In the message I addressed, and it's kind of cool how God, I think, orchestrates things sometimes, and even in the passage that we'd already chosen for today to speak on, it was so relevant to what was happening even just in the last couple of days, in the last week, where we look at Genesis chapter 1, where God is saying, where God creates man and woman, and he gives them his image. He says, I'm creating you, and I'm created. It says he created us in his image.
Absolutely.
And it's this beautiful setup to who we are. I mean, that's where, at the deepest level, first of all, I'm made as someone in the image of God. So are my black brothers and sisters. So are my brown brothers and sisters. I mean, everybody in this world. And so I think as a church, we have to start there with our theology, which our theology ought to impact everything practically. Like, what we believe about God, what we believe about people ought to impact everything in our world. So, of course, I said this in the message, of course, I mean, people who go around saying all lives matter, of course they do.
Of course.
And no one's arguing that.
No
But
one
that,
ever. Yeah.
I mean, but that can be used as a weapon to try to back off, when people get scared or frustrated or afraid, of what's happening around them. They don't understand it. The Black Lives Matter movement we fully support as a church, and as a Christ follower, because
Right.
We're agreeing with God. We're just saying, of course they do. And really what I said in the message is that until Black lives matter and until they really matter in our culture and are equal, then all lives don't really matter. So I say that, and then I also understand I'm a white guy, you're a white guy. I mean, and we are responsible in some ways for our church and for ourselves, and just having the conversation and beginning the conversation, also knowing that this is going to be a long time coming here of a lot of things, and we as a church want to be able to have a conversation with each other and with our African American brothers and sisters, and really more of a listening conversation, I think, where we're listening and trying to understand and hear and figure out how do we amplify those great voices in our culture right now that are really leading us, and what do we do about that? So I wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, and I love, I think that's great advice for someone who is maybe taking steps toward Jesus, or maybe would even consider themselves a Christ follower, is to say, hey, look around you. Everyone you see is made in the image of God. So at that point, it's not just a black and white thing. It's not just the color of my skin. It's, hey, the neighbor that annoys you because he parks, in front of your house, or plays his music too loud early in the morning, he's made in the image of God. And so the person in the car line who takes too long picking up their kids because they're chatting to the other moms, they're made in the image of God. And so I think a lot of our fights, a lot of our disagreements, I think a lot of our hateful thoughts, whatever it may be, can be resolved when we think, you know what, Jerel, you were made in the image of God, and so am I, and so is everyone else on this planet. One thing I told my kids when this is all going down, I kind of explained it. My kids are young, so I kind of explained it the best I could, but I got to the point where I just wanted to know, everyone is made in the image of God. Jesus Christ died for everyone, and we are called to love everyone. We're on mission. We're called, because my kids don't understand college. So I said, you're like the Avengers. You are on mission. You're on a mission to love everyone.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I think when we start there, Jerel, with our theology, when we start there, that's just a good foundation.
And it's not only external, it's internal. So I need to, and what I was trying to do today was challenge us and encourage us to believe that about ourselves. Not only believe that about the people that we see, but I got to believe that about me first. And that can be hard, because I see myself as an accumulation of all of my faults a lot of the time. And God doesn't. And he is actively in my life saying, you are my child, you're my son, I've created you in my image. And so that means a lot in your world and my world. I mean, like, one of the things that means is that I can be healthy. Like, I can be whole, not perfect, but I can be emotionally healthy. And so I try to set it up, this series, or set it up today, by saying that there's three gauges in our life. There's more than that, really, but there's a physical gauge. We tend to think of physical and spiritual, and the third gauge, if our life is like a dashboard on a car, the third gauge is emotional, and we often ignore that. Like, I ran out of gas one time in high school, like 2 miles from my house, and I'm not going to say what car I was in, because you guys always make fun of me about saying the kind.
You had a '68 Mustang. Come on, man.
Have a 60.
You say it like, well, I was driving my '68 Mustang.
I do. I say that a lot. I ran out of gas, and it was just because I wasn't paying attention. I was clearly not paying attention, and I think that's what happens in our emotional lives, is that we get to a point where we feel pretty. I mean, you might feel good physically and good, maybe good spiritually, but you're like burned out. Do
you think we confuse those things? Do you think that maybe we feel burned out emotionally, and we think, oh, I just need to go to a spa because I'm burned out physically, or I just need to whatever the thing may be.
Yes.
Do you think we confuse those?
I think we probably do. That's a great question, and I bet we confuse things spiritually too. Like, I bet we confuse our emotional tank with our spiritual tank, so that we think, well, oh my gosh, I'm feeling so depleted. Maybe I need to pray more. Yes. I just need to trust God more, because I'm not doing that. when that may not, and I think we do that a lot actually, and we put that on people sometimes too. Well-meaning people will say, you just need to pray about it, or you just need, like if you're dealing with anxiety, I think that's a classic example. A lot of people who deal with it, other folks will tell them, well, you just need to think different about yourself, or you need to trust God, basically trust God more. And they're going, but I'm already I'm doing that every way I know how, and I still feel this way.
Correct.
And I think we need to, as a church, validate the emotional side of things, the emotional tank, and say to people, hey, it's okay to go get counseling. It's okay to sit in a therapist's office. It's okay to acknowledge I'm really jacked up emotionally, and it's okay to call it out too. Like it's not okay to be emotionally distant and shut off.
Yeah.
My
friend, and I used to, when I worked in Utah, I worked for a guy named Eric, and he would always say emotions need to be treated like a thermometer and not a thermostat, where the thermostat will control the temperature in the room.
Yeah.
And a thermometer just monitors it, right? You can't control anything from a thermometer, but you can kind of tell, okay, it's a little too hot, it's a little too cold.
Yeah.
And so emotions do not need to control us, but we do need to be aware of our emotions and where our emotions are coming from, and why we feel them and why we're there. And yeah, I agree. I think talking to trusted friends or family or even counselors, therapists, is a totally normal thing, and actually shows an incredible amount of wisdom and can get you to a really great place.
Well, I don't mean to make it I don't think it's just a guys versus girls kind of thing, or a men versus women kind of thing, but I do think guys will push that away a little quicker. Even like one of the first thing that I say about one of the symptoms of unhealthy emotional being unhealthy emotionally is that you ignore sadness and fear and anger. You just ignore those feelings. And I think because
I'm a man, right? I don't need to feel that. I'm a man. I'm smoking meat. I'm a man.
You are a man. I'm a man. Say it again, Ethan.
I'm a man.
But yeah, I think we tend to get this idea that if I feel that way, it's not okay. And so I either adjust and it comes out as an accepted emotion, whatever that is, anger at a specific thing, or maybe it's more acceptable around us, or the other thing is we just kind of shove it away, we ignore it. And the problem with that, as we know, is that it's gonna come back up.
It's gonna blow up at some point.
And so we all, and by the way, I mean, I don't know if you have a copy of the book, but emotionally healthy. There you go.
I'm always plugging a book in these things.
You really are, and that's good, like, because I honestly think that we're learning from other people too. So it's okay. And I would highly recommend it by Peter Scazzaro. And I think that we have to be able to accept that we have emotions, and accept that we might have grown up in an environment where it was unhealthy. Most of us have, in either mildly or severely unhealthy in terms of what was modeled to us, in terms of parents dealing with emotions or not dealing with them, or your mom or your dad or your brother or your sister, your family that you came out of. All those things are really, really important. And if we ignore them, which we do in the church sometimes, we just say, oh, well, Jesus has covered all that. Like Jesus has created me as a new, created me as a new creature. I'm new in him.
And I have to be happy all the time.
Well, yeah. And don't you think
that's the thing, is like, because of Jesus, I have to be happy all the time. If I'm not happy, then it must be a lack of Jesus in that area.
Yeah.
Right?
Or if someone's upset with me, then that must mean that I screwed up, or I haven't accepted Jesus fully, or if he was really real in my life, then I wouldn't have these feelings or these problems. But our family dynamic, but the place we came out of, is really powerful. And Jesus just doesn't always snap his fingers and say, oh, I'm gonna like make all that fine. More often than not, I think he's saying, hey, I can walk through this with you.
Yes.
It might be hard. If you're willing to look at it, it's going to be really hard. If you're willing to open up that curtain and look back at your past, I will walk through this with you and we can redeem it. And you don't have to live in the chains of it anymore, but you have to look at it. And I think Jesus is inviting us into those conversations about ourselves, because I said at the beginning, and it was really the author's words, that you can't, if you don't know yourself, you really can't know God. Yeah. And what he really is saying is, God created me a specific way. I can't pretend to be somebody else. I got to figure out who I am. And that means wading through some of the junk sometimes to get to the other side. But it's going to be a fun series. I hope it's timely. I feel like it is, because I just think there's a lot of underlying stress and strain right now. And I think it's important for us to pay attention to this. Yeah,
just to wrap up, I'd love to ask you, why is, we just talked about emotional health and is emotional health the foundation to spiritual health, or is it more important than like street smarts or book smarts or brain intelligence? Like normal intelligence? Like, why is,
I do. I know what you're saying. I don't know. I don't know which is, like, would you rather have emotional intelligence or a high IQ and no emotional intelligence? Is that the...
Well, I don't have either, so it's fine.
I have a lot of brain intelligence.
I have muscles. No,
I just think that it's been neglected. And so I think, and it's to Scazzero's point too, that we have created this situation in the church where it's not okay to deal with your emotions, when the fact is, if we don't, we'll never be healthy spiritually. So I don't know what's the most important, but I can tell you, if you have a high emotional IQ, you will really be able to assess situations quickly and assess people quickly and be in a healthier place. And people can, and you can learn that too. I think you can grow that, right? Like, don't you think that you can,
absolutely,
you can grow in that area?
Yeah. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, man, I do not have high emotional health or intelligence, then no worries. You can flex that muscle a bit. You can work on that a little bit and get to a point where you are at a place where you're emotionally healthy. It may take reading a book, or it may take going to see a counselor, or talking to a friend, or whatever it may be. And that's great. That's fine. I mean, I've done all those things to get to where, and I'm not even, you never graduate, right? It's never like, I'm emotionally healthy, 100%, stamp it. It's always a work in progress. And Jesus is walking alongside, like Jerel said, Jesus is walking alongside us through that, through our past, through our present. But it takes, I think God puts people in our lives, resources in our lives to kind of partner with what he's doing in us.
Yeah, and when I know the warning signs, I can start to do something about it.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We'll keep talking about it, brother.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much, Jerel. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you soon.
Hope the smoked meat comes out well.
I hope so too. If I'm sick in the morning for a staff meeting, then you know why.
All right.
Undercooked.
See you, brother.
I'll see you, man.